I would totally do a 180 on Bieber if he did that. You know, I would have so much respect for you're gonna see all kinds of stuff, and then you're gonna then Obama, Usher and Justin Bieber, weird stuff, man. That there's rumors going around it, and he was always so uncomfortable around P Diddy, and now we know why. It just and then these Hollywood secrets. It's like all this stuff is really nothing new. It gets crazy when you really dig into some of the secrets in Hollywood that we learn about. I just want to play a quick clip for you because this was something I thought was it just blew me away, you know. And I wanted to play this clip. Let me find this for you all real quick. Where did I save that? Oh, I don't know if it's even here. I don't even know if it's there, man. Well, let me. Oh, hey, what's up, Crypto?
Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to
hopefully,
see you,
Taryn.
We're double streaming. We are
yes,
double.
sir.
Nice. Yeah. So, oh yeah, Bill Shill Nye, the bias guy, was on, and he just endorsed, you know, Kamala Harris for president.
Of course,
the deep state candidate. You know, not that Trump is, you know, completely free of deep state ties. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of rumors going around that like a lot of this Epstein stuff's going to come out, that they're going to throw Trump under the bus and say that he's, you know, more involved with Epstein. We already know Bill Gates, you know, divorced his wife Melinda over the whole Epstein controversy thing, and then, you know, Bill Gates has just been tied to, you know, everything from, you know, coronavirus and that shady money that Fauci used to fund risky research and Chinese bioweapons labs that were studying, you know, coronaviruses.
gain of function, nonetheless.
Yeah, really crazy stuff. Yeah, developing bioweapons so that would, you know, it would increase this this gain of function and make it really, really transmissive, really catchy, but also make it so like it would die out as it reproduced. It would kill itself, like a kill switch built into the virus itself. It's they were testing it. They wanted to, and we didn't stop them. That's the scary part, is the people that built a super virus in this lab and released it just before an election. You know, and there's a whole controversy on the whole lockdowns and whether we were locked down in order to steal that election through mail-in ballots, because the mail-in ballot thing is just a mess, and they say you can't talk about it, and it's disinformation. But it really has made me lose faith in our elections. I mean, I've lost faith in our elections back in when Kerry ran against Bush, you know, and they were both revealed to be members of the same secret society at Yale, you know. So it's like how is both candidates for president, you know, members of the same secret society? It kind of made a lot of people really scratch their heads at the whole election process. And, you know, that was what really woke me up to the fact that the DNC and the RNC was rigging the elections by picking, you know, the candidates. That you don't tell me that, you know, what would have happened if they had ran RFK or someone instead of Trump, you know, like the RNC didn't have to pick Trump. I mean, I won't get into all the politics and stuff, man. It's just crazy what's going on. The reality is, though, is that Bill Gates, big money player, funding a lot of this crazy stuff that's been world events these last, you know, few years, and you know, funding, and because people wouldn't take the vaccine, he was funding the vaccines. People wouldn't take his vaccines. He ended up funding ways of putting the vaccine into food, so that people would eat, you know, you'd eat the food and get the vaccine absorbed through the RNA that would be transferred through your intestine, you know, tracked to your blood. He put hundreds of millions of dollars of research into all these things.
That's
And this
frightening,
is
to say the
documented.
least.
And then the Bill Gates super mosquitoes, right? The Bill Gates super mosquito. Have you heard about those? Well, yeah, he put $168 million into, developing, um, and then also he was building back mosquitoes, right? So mosquitoes giving people malaria in Africa was apparently a problem. So he's literally trying to build mosquitoes that would vaccinate people against malaria. That's what he's saying he's doing, but he's really putting the research into building weaponized mosquitoes that will vaccinate you or give you DNA or RNA transfers through mosquito bites. Which, how many people get bit by mosquitoes?
Everyone, every summer.
Everyone every summer. Like, this is, it's pretty nuts to think that he's done that. And then I just, it blew my mind, like, a couple weeks ago, where I'm just like, like, maybe is my world like completely crumbling with this conspiracy nonsense? Because, like, I thought we had one last bastion, and now I owe a huge apology to all those chemtrail people that I literally doubted and called fools and nut jobs, and I this was one that I just couldn't believe. And then you go and you see it right out in front of you with guys like David Keith. I'm gonna play the clip of him on Colbert so we can all analyze that. Yeah, here's a short clip just to actually we'll play the 6-minute one just to really, it's got the Joe Rogan thing in it. That's funny. I'm going to share the audio tab so we can listen to this. Now, let's watch this and dissect this, because this is like a big shocker for me. I was like, I called these people cranks. I said they didn't understand science. It's contrails, Well, all the planes are contrails, right? But listen to what he says. All you need is three or four jets, specially rigged. I mean, this is not a big conspiracy. Listen to this. Yeah, see, there was one person who clipped that out of context. I saw in like another chemtrail video where they cut that out, and they made it look like he said, we're spraying 20 million tons of this into the atmosphere annually. Because if you clip that line out, it sounds like he says that we're spraying 20 million tons, but he's talking about, humans polluting the atmosphere with human pollution. And how do we do that? Well, coal. If you look up coal, people burn coal to produce electrical energy in a lot of places. Coal fired power plants provide a lot of electricity. And if you look up the coal process, there's a lot of sulfur in coal, and when you burn that, it produces sulfuric acid, which releases off into the atmosphere. So the majority of that 20 million pounds is coming from coal-fired power plants, right? So we say, but that doesn't necessarily go right up into the atmosphere, and it doesn't distribute into key parts. So what he's talking about is taking a couple airplanes and flying up and spraying this deliberately and at really high, at 30,000 feet. So like right at the right height, and also spreading it over like these grid type areas. So like you've seen, this is different than contrails and contrail formation. And then the other idea is that they could just put a little bit of this into the fuel. They could add a lot of sulfur additives into regular jet fuel that they're putting out there, so that the jets just put naturally more sulfur and sulfuric acid in the atmosphere. So this is kind of crazy. And what's weird is that 2 states have banned this already. They banned this back in January. New Hampshire chemtrails. So like there's a ban, and Tennessee. So there's New Hampshire and Tennessee were the 2 states, and they wanted the county sheriffs to investigate. And what happened is they're literally stopped being trails in those 2 states. Like people
Really?
report that like there's it's pretty crazy. But then there's these people, I saw this one post of someone saying that one of these skeptic people was like, oh, two states just ban something that doesn't exist, you know, because saying that chemtrails don't exist, and it's gotten like 23,000 likes, you know. So there's still a lot of people that, you know, I don't like the term chemtrails because there was so much bullshit. It seems like this guy from Harvard, David Keith, right? He came out with this idea, and this video, this interview on Colbert is actually like 14 years old. So keep in mind that this was like probably 14 years ago. I don't know when, but they've been talking about this since the 70s. So somebody has the idea. Maybe it's not even him. Maybe he's not connected. Maybe he just was the guy they chose to influence on this, and he wrote the book on it, trying to, like, you know, convince other smart people that this wasn't such a bad idea. So if and when the truth that they've been doing it actually did come out, because you know that the military would experiment with this, right? I don't think it's
Of
that far
course.
off from Operation Sea Spray or Operation what was the other one? Operation Popeye, right? So the Rainbow Herbicides program, for example. All three of those, which I learned about through uh, a debate I had on chemtrails with on one of Andreas's friends. I was on Andreas's channel, and he brought some people on to debate the chemtrail thing with me, and I learned about all these things. And but you know, then you look at David Keith, and his stuff. Who paid him to write that book and be a proponent of the chemtrail stuff? It was Bill Gates. So you look in who's been funding this stuff since, you know, because when did the chemtrail stuff really start? When Bill Gates started getting, you know, loads and loads of money. Maybe he's the one who's
True.
been behind it, you know, because there's, you know, like a lot of people point to David Keith and say that he's in on a conspiracy and part of it. But no, people like this are used all the time, and they don't have to be in on it. You know what I mean? He really just wrote the book, and he was like a spokesperson for it. So let's continue listening. We're about halfway through, so that blows the whole, you know, the thing I see. People, I put this on Twitter, and people share that stupid John Brennan, you know, the former CIA director, when he gave
Yeah.
a speech on it, and that was just not even on. You know, anytime the CIA director is telling you about anything, you need to understand that he's not giving you the real deal. Like that's not how the CIA works, you know,
Right? Like,
at all.
just
So
so ridiculous. He's not anybody's friend. He's not coming out to give us the truth. That's for
yeah,
damn sure.
yeah. So I don't even bother with that. So you know, this is a little bit of nuggets of truth mixed with a lot of disinformation and poison pills to really, like, you know, if this is a program, it's it's not government, it's not CIA, it's none of that. It's got to be like, it's going to be like Bill Gates funding it, and a couple people in the military know about it as private, like, you know, who are like off the record contractors, and it's no official documentation or like official operation. It's like, nope, you're in the CIA now, and this is like one of your first covert missions, and you know, type deal. And it wouldn't be that hard for them to, you know, load up some sulfur, you know, into the fuel tanks of some jet fuels. But anyways, it's um, this is this is a good start. I want to go into some more stuff though, because this is a deep dive on technologies, and you know, we were gonna have Taryn Earthland jump on and go through the database that we have and talk about some of the new files and documents and stuff, interesting stuff that he's come across. The alien scientists, of course, we have a database, a large file database on a Google Drive that we've, you know, it's been a big shared thing. It's like we're looking for people that are whales of research to come and share their archives, and we built a massive archive from, you know, a big fishing net that swallowed that cat, you know, gathered up all the whales in the ocean. So we're that's what we're trying to do is build the biggest database on this stuff. We've already pretty much done that. I don't think anyone's got a bigger database than we have now, with especially all the APEC contributors and everyone that we've brought together with this community, and the amount of research that we've really nailed a lot of this metamaterial stuff going back to the 1940s, maybe even earlier, that some of these geometry were just discovered or known about, or tried at least, with you know, Walter Schottky and a lot of those guys that developed solid state theory for physics way back in the 20s had to have laid the foundational work for, you know, some of the insights into these, you know, these type of materials would work, because you're thinking about bulk materials and then you're modeling them as like, you know, a bunch of these atoms that are connected together in a solid state, right? And wave propagation through that, so that they had a lot of the math necessary for understanding that, hey, you know, you build something with this structure, it's going to have a different wave, it's going to have a different response to the wave function, you know, than normal things, because you're essentially like hacking the frequency of the wave function, which is exactly what this thing did. It knew all the English radar frequency, and it built this anechoic tiles to the exact geometry of the English radar. And one of these subs literally sat in the English Channel between France and England for like a whole week undetected. They saw it and like chased it, and then it went and sank and laid there, and I think they eventually got it, but they just carpet bombed the whole. They knew it was there, and they blocked up both ends of the channel so it couldn't get out. You know, because they knew the sub was in the English Channel, so the Navy automatically set up points at both ends of the channel so that they could just narrow the sweep down. You know, and then they just bombed. I think they eventually got it by bombing it, but you can look it up U480 for more information, I think, on that sub, and how we even know about this, because if we didn't sink this sub and all this, and we never caught one of these stealth subs, this technology, I don't even know if we know about it today, because this all went to not Nazi. All the Nazi scientists went Operation Paperclip or Operation Hijinks. What was the Russian one? So Paperclip had brought all the scientists to the U.S., and then the Russians grabbed up the ones that they could and brought them to the Soviet Union. So yeah, Red October, exactly. So good discussion for the submarine, and a good start to all this. And then, of course, you know, we have the allegations that they were doing teleportation or time travel studies. Oh no, it wasn't teleportation, but it was definitely some anti-gravity or time travel stuff. No, what the Americans must have done in terms of that, but it had Jack Parsons summoning demons with sex magic rituals and then blowing himself up with a pipe bomb.
I had never heard of that, but
What, in Jack Parsons?
Yeah.
You never heard the Jack Parsons story, dude? He was like this occult magic NASA scientist. He was one of the top. He had like this super high security clearance, and he was on to Aleister Crowley. And he like went to parties with Aleister Crowley, like knew him personally and stuff. And like this was one of the guys that like helped set up and develop the space program. He was just
that's pretty wild. And well, what a basis for all the stories we hear out of Hollywood, like the Diddy case today, if that's what was found.
So I was gonna find this clip and I couldn't find it, and I was gonna play it, but I'll reiterate what I remember of it, because we all know, like, there's all these deep CIA and weird connections to the occult, magic, and these secret programs and a lot of this stuff too, right? So there's a book called Chaos. I don't know if you've heard of that, Tom or Neil. I think, yeah. Heard of this one with about the secret history of the CIA and the Charles Manson and all that stuff in the 60s? Well, there's a whole other list of this Hollywood connection that I didn't even know about Robert Hale, I think, Robert Allen Hale. Did you guys know about Papa Pilgrim?
Nope. Do tell more.
Well, Robert Allen Hale, I think he was the so I just heard this, so I'll reiterate what I heard about him. He apparently knew the whole CIA, and this is like the stories that, like, the all these Hollywood. There's this story about once upon a time in Hollywood. It's based on this guy loosely, apparently.
Okay.
He kills his wife, gets away with it, and then it starts him on this whole, like, crazy thing. And then I guess Sharon Tate knew something about it, and so, like, was involved in some, crazy, these sex parties and stuff with him. Sharon Tate used to be Robert Allen Hale's lover, and he helped work with the CIA to, feed the Manson cult all LSD. The Manson had this sex cult with the Manson cult, and that was out in Hollywood, and then the Manson cult on an LSD trip went and killed Sharon Tate, the Sharon Tate murders and all this. So, like, there's all this weird back connection behind all this crazy stuff. And then they the prosecutor who covered it up, Vincent Bugliosi, the DA who prosecuted Manson for the state of California, was later, like, wrote the whole book on JFK, for, like, basically the CIA and all the people that killed JFK wrote this fake book about, covering up his murder and blaming it on Oswald, and solely on Oswald. And Bugliosi was the guy who put his pen name on that, and his whole name on it. And it's all interesting, because the connection between the Manson cult is that, the Manson cult was allegedly programmed by this guy, Jolyon West, right? And then Jolyon West was Jack Ruby's court-appointed attorney. So Jack Ruby, the guy who kills Oswald, and the man who killed the president, so Oswald allegedly shoots the president, and then boom, Oswald's dead, and Jack Ruby killed him. Then Jack Ruby goes crazy right after the court appoints him, Jolyon West, as his attorney. So Jolly West, you can look up Jolly West. Yeah, Louis Jolyon West. This is the guy right here. He was like the brainwashing agent for the CIA, and one of them. He's one of the guys that create Manchurian Candidate. So allegedly, he's the guy that programmed the Manson cult to carry out the Tate murders, which they, smeared blood on the wall. It was a big, like, occult sacrifice kind of Hollywood ritual thing, and that was carried out. And part of it was to, disrupt the whole. It was really to, like, disrupt the whole counterculture, because people were starting to, like, take drugs and rebel against society, and everything was going to become legal way back then. And that's when they started this, like, whole war on drugs. 72 is when they started the war on drugs. So it was like, just, in response to all this late 60s
Well,
stuff.
that makes sense, right? If everybody that's using drugs is against the government, well, how do you make rebellion illegal? Make the drugs illegal.
Yeah, and then they also came in with the psychiatrists, and these brainwashing technique, and they came in with all kinds of different experimental drugs. And this is when they were funding guys like Alexander Shulgin, who was the head scientist for, this guy he created ecstasy. He synthesized MDMA, and in the late 70s. But he was experimenting with all these drugs. He's like a massively insanely smart drug chemist, and he said he's created over 100 psychedelic compounds. He said he's created psychedelic compounds that make LSD look like a multivitamin.
He does look like he's experimented with a few of his creations.
Oh yes, yes indeed.
The real Santa Claus right there? I don't know.
Yeah, well, the whole Santa Claus, the Santa Claus myth is like based on the mushroom, Amanita muscaria.
Yeah, so this is the guy that created like the 2CB, 2CI, and all of those, I think, or is that someone else?
This is
Pretty
it.
sure.
Did the story of Santa come from a magic mushroom? Well then, apparently someone tripped and came up with the idea with Santa. So.
And then we got the CIA guy giving it all away, looking like old Santa Claus.
I know. Well, this guy actually, I don't think he worked for the CIA, but the DEA raided him many times. But they basically he's doing research, so they can't he's basically got like a special license because he knows more about drugs than anyone in the DEA. You know what I mean? It's like the government, like when you get to this level, the government's just like, all right, never mind.
Yeah, give us something useful. Give us a truth serum and create whatever else you want.
Yeah. No, you're good. We really liked that LSD stuff back in the 60s. We gave it to a lot of people. These drugs are even better. Thank you. And we're moving on into this is, I mean, I can't even go into, if they did all this as MK Ultra back in the 60s, they experimented with all of his inventions, all of his shit. They know all, there's documents on all this stuff. They probably go to festivals and give it to people and fall,
Right. So then it's like it brings up the question of how many experiencers were actually just experiencing hallucinations from the CIA and whatnot, testing drugs on them potentially.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if you had something that made LSD look like a multivitamin and you gave that to someone in the presence of some crazy,
Right. And then they're doing maybe doing monitoring and abducting people while on these drugs to research was it actually just CIA experimenters shoving the thermostats up people's asses and not aliens after they gave them 2CB or 2CI or so.
Missing time. Oh, I've explained a lot, but the other thing is how about the compounds that are over in like DMT is like you literally like 15 minutes, right? It's over 15 minutes and it's over. Like you're totally sober and back to normal again. It's like, boom, interdimensional time warp to like friggin' a whole nother dimension. And then boom, you're back 15 minutes.
Yeah. DMT is an interesting one though, because it's like the body creates that, and you get it during the REM sleep, right? And then birth and death.
Yeah.
So
anyways, you got to think like these guys were experimenting with also mind control and hypnosis, And the CIA, of course, was like, hey, can we program a killer? Can you program someone to kill? And they were like, yeah, we could probably do that. Definitely, they experimented with it, man. I guarantee you that some of these things are results of those programs, like Charles Manson, and then also out in California. Sorry, Charles Manson. It's a cult leader. But also Sirhan, right? But that wasn't that was a different guy. They didn't want to use Jolyon, you know, and have all this stuff connected, right? So they had to have Bobby. Bobby couldn't be like that closely connected to JFK. So they, in order to program his assassin, they used a different guy, and that was a guy named William Joseph Bryan. If you ever heard of him before, but he was a hypnotist that worked for the CIA out there, and also worked in Boston for the Boston Strangler thing. So they must have moved him out to California. Oh yeah, in 1969, okay, in 1969, which is a year after the RFK assassination. So think in 1968, that's when he programs, you know, 1967, probably it took a year to program. Maybe he was seeing this guy as a psychiatrist. So Sirhan's going to see the psychiatrist for, you know, a year before he goes and shoots the president. And then
Isn't it the psychiatrist's job to make sure you don't go out and shoot people, especially this president?
usually, but you know, when there's those type of people around, they make you know, useful, they could provide useful, you know, for objectives. So you say, oh, here's a guy who's like pro-Palestinian, really hate, you know, like, and you could hype him up politically about, you know, sympathize with his feelings, and then easily, yeah, it could easily put him under these hypnosis sessions, especially someone easily susceptible. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. There's an episode called The Assassin of Darren Brown. I don't know if you ever seen this.
I have not.
Yeah, this is interesting. He's like an expert on like magic tricks and mind control. He's like he can do the mind reading. He can do counting cards. He can memorize like a deck. You can show him like a deck, and he'll memorize the cards and stuff. Like he does all these like crazy mind. He's studied all these tricks. He studies like all the tricks and tries to reproduce them on his show. He's a real whiz of a guy. And a lot of people accuse him of using, you know, stooges for his acts and stuff. But he talks about this this targeting method that the CIA would use to create these sleeper agents. And he talks about like this whole technique that they'll go and do to create these sleeper agents. And even in this, he talks about Sirhan, right? So he brings it up in the episode, and he says, well, we've alleged that, you know, because his relatives say that, you know, he was programmed, you know. Talk about the psychiatrists and how like the psychiatry firm was some shady thing that just shut up and left like immediately after. And
Really?
And that he says that there was like a woman in the blue, the last thing he remembers seeing was the woman in the blue dress walk by him. And he thinks that, well, that's the trigger, you know, that they said, like, you know, they had a woman in a blue dress and then leading him into the pantry, right? So the woman in the blue dress was led him through the pantry, and then she disappears. The guy following RFK right behind him is actually Thane Eugene Caesar, and he's a security guard from Lockheed Skunk Works that got the job at the Ambassador Hotel because they needed a couple extra security officers for positions. So they, put out an ad, and I guess he responded. But is how he got in there is a little bit weird, yeah. And then he moved right after the assassination. The security guard, Thane Eugene Caesar, he moved to the Philippines. Yeah, it's really a
Not
weird story,
suspect whatsoever.
And then the guy who was the head of the head of the California Police Department's investigation, the homicide unit, was later revealed that he had he was a CIA agent, like that he was under contract and being paid for the CIA. So, and he like destroyed evidence related to the case and all kinds of stuff, and it's never been brought
Right,
up.
like pretty much anything official from the government, it's like the exact opposite is what they're doing or what their goal is from what they state publicly.
Oh, we find this out years later when this stuff comes out, but and then Sirhan, they put him under hypnosis and all this other stuff to get it out of him, and then RFK, the son, RFK Jr., his son doesn't believe it. He's like, he actually showed up at Sirhan's parole hearing and was like, he needs to be given parole because I don't think he did it, and he needs freedom so that we can get him the right kind of. His memory's been blocked by whoever hypnotized him, and they feel like with the right regression and techniques they could get some stuff out of him potentially. But who knows, man. He's still alive. I think he's out. I think he's actually out maybe now. I don't know. Where is Sirhan right now? Did they give him parole? I think they still denied it, even though no, he's still locked up. They haven't let him out.
Well, if Trump Kennedy win and Trump follows through on releasing all of the Kennedy files, maybe they'll actually pardon him or let him out.
It'd be great. Overturn
but
this could be great. Overturn this conviction and then change the history on this on the books and make it say, that he was a programmed assassin by William Joseph Bryan, who, because he wrote about DeSalvo in his notes. His journal had a page about DeSalvo in it, and DeSalvo is the Boston Strangler who confessed under hypnosis, and the hypnotist who hypnotized the Boston Strangler and got him to confess was William Joseph Bryan Jr.
just wild, hey? Like, it's crazy.
So there's those connections. Then the whole thing with that Hale guy. What was I talking about? The Robert Hale. Let's go back to so Jolyon West is working with that, and then this Robert Hale guy's apparently he's like the original like P. Diddy Epstein kind of guy, and Robert Maxwell and learned it from him and taught it to his daughter, who then ran the game with Jeffrey Epstein, and then of course you had Black Epstein, who just got arrested. Running his operation.
What a suitable name, though. The Black Epstein.
No, I didn't make that up. By the way, that's what people
exactly. The internet did because it's true.
The internet labeled him that. So
does Diddy also work for Mossad? That's the only other question.
Well, this is an interesting story, like. Because this talk, Candace Owens is talking about like the Black Illuminati, right? Is this what is this whole connection here? What is the black? Is this, talk about Beyonce, Jay-Z, then the whole rap game. How about the whole? She's like all of gangster rap was basically created by the feds.
Yep.
You go back on this, it's like, wow, the feds literally created gangster rap, and we're gonna play a funny skit. Yeah, this is great. We're gonna play this one just to be funny, because this is we're gonna do a time warp here. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is a comedy show from Trevor Moore, who's dead. He did tons of stuff exposing the CIA's operations over the years, and a lot of people think that they actually had something to do with his death. But yeah, this is. Let's rewind to Los Angeles, 1984, for a second.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up, homies?
Hello, brother.
Never seen y'all before. You new to the hood?
Yeah, we're from a ghetto in a different city.
Oh, y'all from DC?
What?
Got a skins hat on. DC.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! Yeah, we're from a ghetto in D.C.
Yes.
But not like the CIA or anything. Man, I am just really stressed out lately. Just really, really tense. Dude, you should try some of this crack. That's a great idea. Some crack would really hit the spot right now.
What y'all talking about?
Oh, it's just this new and expensive way to get incredibly high. You wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, no, you're right. Got to keep my mind clear, stick to the books. Trying to go to school in the fall.
Yeah, it's just this new way to help you get into school this fall. You wouldn't be interested.
Wait,
Smoke some crack, kids. You'll get into school.
Yeah, just a little bit'll really help you concentrate on your studies. Plus, you could sell it and save all that money for college. Just an ounce of it will get you up to $100.
$100? Wow, that would help me pay for all my books and stuff.
Yeah, it could help you pay for all your books and stuff.
$100 an ounce. Wait a minute.
$100 an ounce, my ass.
Oh, for you. We have 2 vans full of it over there for free.
For free? That's great.
And remember, it's called crack.
Crack.
Yeah, C-R-A-C-K, crack. Here's a pager if you need any more.
Wow. Guys,
CIA
wait.
Blowing up pages since 1984.
I just want to say this is a blessing. I don't know if you noticed, but things have been kind of rough around here. Holding down 3 jobs, got a baby girl coming in May. I just wasn't sure how I was going to make it, but this is really going to help me get my life back on track. So thanks, guys. Thank you.
Hey, just doing what we can. Here to help.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Oh, by the way, there aren't any up-and-coming Martin Luther King Jr. types we should know about, are there?
Well, yeah, we all know the rest of the story. It turned into a guy named Freeway Ricky Ross.
Ricky Ross, the original, right?
The real Ricky Ross. Yeah, so the real Ricky Ross. There was like I guess there's some rapper that stole the name Rick Ross.
From the real one, and
this
he
is
was
the real
even
guy.
tipped off by the feds several times, right? Like they were gonna raid him, the locals were about to raid him, and then his CIA suppliers tipped him off. It's wild.
They picked an actor who looked a lot like a young Ricky Ross too. I mean, it was like I don't know if they did that on purpose, but yeah, it was this is a real story, guys. I mean, the CIA actually did this.
So how this all tunes back into UFOs, Ganja Cat is they had to sell the drugs to fund the black ops to get the UFOs, right, Jim? Is that what it is?
Well, I mean, that's definitely a huge way that they make money. If you look into how much money they made, how much, I mean, Pablo Escobar filling filling houses with stacks of $100 bills. I mean, just cash. This is how much money they were able to. This is black programs. You talk about black programs and funding research. This is a huge way that the CIA,
Mr. John George,
funds this. The CIA went to LA, to South Central. They had the director of the CIA show up there to try to quell the public's fears.
Yeah, the public anger and outrage because it was
Yeah,
exposed that these were
1996.
CIA drugs, right? And the guy that was
A decade
exposing it
after
was
that,
killed.
that was 84. So then, 96, fast forward, now it's been a decade, and everyone's been talking about the CIA dealing drugs and everything. So like John Deutsch shows up to quell these fears. He's going to show up in person and show this city that, this is not happening. This isn't real, right? And guess who shows up?
CIA Director John Deutsch faced a largely hostile audience Friday afternoon at a community forum in South Central Los Angeles.
Thank you, Congresswoman Millender McDonald, for holding this public meeting.
Drug dealer Ricky.
Yeah, so he gives this whole thing, and then it was all the Ricky Ross story saying that he was getting his supplier was these CIA people, and it turned out that he was like the biggest crack dealer. He ran like this Walmart of crack. He made so much money off the crack business that he went and bought out a whole a motel. So he owned this whole motel. It was right off like the cross of the freeways in LA, and literally everybody used to just stop there at the motel, and it was like the Walmart of crack, and it just literally just wiped out within a decade all of LA. And that money, a lot of that money went into funding black programs and CIA black operations, and continues to fund the black operations because they never stopped dealing drugs. They're still dealing drugs. As long as they're illegal, it's a mafia system, and the CIA is working to deal the drugs. And they've been doing it for a long, long time. It doesn't just go back to the 96. I mean, you can go back to I found out just how far back it goes by researching into 9/11. When I found out
the Vietnam War, before that, they were pulling the heroin in, and who knows, maybe even the rum running of the days of the when liquor was illegal, right? Just to make that money.
Yeah. So what I learned about was this guy named the history. It was a history of not Walter Russell. So that's where I'm getting confused, because Walter Russell's Terrence Howard's boy there, with the weird esoteric theories and stuff. But this was the history of Russell and Company. So there was a company called Russell and Company, and they started the whole mid-19th century opium trade. So this was the Opium Wars back in the 1800s, early 1800s. Samuel Russell in Providence, merchants and stuff. So this was right out of Providence in Rhode Island here. And
really, it wasn't just the British. Once America separated, it was run from Providence too. That's wild.
Crazy. Yeah, the whole Opium War stuff, and Newport was a big pirate town from the 1700s. So there's a lot of like pirate money, and like people that there's a lot of Newport was like a big port in the East Coast. That's where like a lot of ships would come straight to. Maybe stop in Cape Cod, in the first voyage over, and then hit like Newport was like the big stop. and you know, it was a big you know, on all the maps, and it was a big you know, port town back in those days. But yeah, Russell and Company. It turns out like some of their all their like offspring, like all the kids in the family tree, have all been like worked for CIA and been interesting people. And then we actually found out about all this stuff by looking into the people who ran security at the World Trade Centers on 9/11, because there was a guy named Dexter Walker III, and we're trying to trace back the whole Walker family line with the Bushes and stuff, and it's like, oh well, the Bushes like are drug dealers and war profiteers from the Civil War era, you know, the 1800s and stuff.
Right, like
Go back into it, they're like one of these families that's been like head of
Grandpa Bush and great Grandpa Bush funding the Nazis.
Well, what they did, the Grandpa Bushes, they purposely, you know, put their kids in the private schools where they'd be, and they paid extra to have them, like, make sure my son rooms with the son of Brown Brothers Harriman, and you know, so that they become grade school friends with all these top elite bankers and people that would later become, you know, key industrial insiders in the whole intelligence network and mob, which is really crazy if you think about that. You know, all the industries that they touch elbows at these schools, and the way that the rich people mix their kids together to run all this stuff kind of behind the scenes and set this up. You know, it's pretty interesting when you get into that stuff. But yeah, as far as the technologies go, let's get back into how this relates to the UFO stuff. There's actually, I'll tie it back in now rather nicely. So if we were on, oh wait, I don't want to. I just want to share the window, not the screen, just the window. There we go. Now let's go into the whole creation of NASA. And Operation Paperclip comes over.
This guy with ritualistic sex magic.
Yeah, summoning UFO. Some people say that he summoned the UFO at Roswell with some weird ritual that they were doing. I think it was the fact that we had all the nukes at Roswell. That was the base where we had all the bomb squadron for all the nukes. So that was like a hot spot. And that's why the UFOs were interested in Roswell. And we might have shot one down, just probes looking for, you know. The other idea is that Roswell was captured Horton Brothers parabola, and that those were the craft that Kenneth Arnold described seeing. This is his drawing. This is what he said he saw. So were these a bunch of captured Horton Brothers wing type craft that were flying back from, you know, to or flying to Edwards Air Force Base, or from Edwards to, you know, Roswell or one of these other sites, and they were spotted. Could that have been responsible for some of the saucer waves and stuff of the 40s? And then they spread UFO disinformation to throw the public off that these were, you know, their own programs. Who knows, man? There's a lot of reports. Of course, you know, the Air Force wrote their report in '94 saying it was Project Mogul, and it was weather balloons, weather balloon trains with a bunch of weather balloons that, you know, and nothing more. I asked, you know, T.D. Barnes thought that it was a reasonable explanation too. You had this balloon scientist doing all kinds of research, you know, and he was one of the big debunkers. Later alleged to be one of the members of the MJ-12, or the official government cover-up of UFOs for the government, but saying that it was all his balloon stuff and he did all the research and that it was his technology, and that people were giving credit to aliens and a whole bunch of other nonsense when it was him.
Well, John Brandenburg there talking with us before the last Apex, saying that he was told it was like a shoot down of a UF craft because it was so or UFO craft because it was so close to Los Alamos that they were there for the nukes potentially. Another idea of Roswell, but
yeah, well, they were, that they set it up with a shoot down. That's another idea, is that that basically the nuclear hotspot was attracting a lot of UFO activity, and that they retaliated by building a weapon that could shoot one of these down. Some people say it was a Tesla death ray. Other people say it was just an array of electromagnetic radiation that they could switch on a real strong electromagnetic field that would disrupt the craft's propulsion system, or short it out, or create an EMP, early EMP stuff. There's a whole bunch of theories on how they could have shot it down, or that's what they did. But the important thing is we have a really high-ranking person who was head of the foreign technology desk at Wright-Patterson Field come forward and say that, yeah, we reversed all this, engineered all this technology from UFOs. Basically, this is stuff that we've had in secret, and we've been trickling out the technology for years through these CIA programs that are like kept super under wraps, so that the technology never leaks or comes out. I don't know, is that believable? I think it could be believable now, because I've just seen how they're able to cover up other crimes, like COVID and 9/11 and all these other conspiracies, chemtrails that we started out with. They're able to put out all this bullshit and then debunk that bullshit, and it's like a straw man, and everyone thinks that the straw man's been debunked. So when they look at the real stuff, they just see the straw man, and they don't look deeper. And I think that's a tactic that they've used to cover up a lot of good physics. It's used on everywhere, because it's all over the physics and science community. They use it to ridicule the anomalies and the breakthroughs that could be happening. Well, they waste tons of research on paths they know won't go anywhere. That's what I feels like. I talk about a bunch of cool stuff. The memory foils and the shame pretension alloys is the most fascinating thing, though, because there was a bunch of if you look at all the original witnesses, like Jesse Marcel, the Air Force intelligence officer, Mac Brazel, the daughters of the sheriff, everyone who saw this material and handled this material, said it was this memory foil, which is insane, because we don't have anything like that. I've never seen anything like that come out. It was this super strong material, and there's theories on how it was made. What it was, a woven mesh of nitinol nanowire, or zero tolerance machining.
Right, like that's technology that's just being released and developed today now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then Mylar wasn't invented until the mid 50s. That was the debunkers. Oh, it's just Mylar, or it was early Mylar. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't developed until the mid 50s. And like, oh, well, that's just officially, they have this, they have stuff and are working with stuff years ahead before the public knows about it, right? So would this be different? Maybe. I don't know. Where's the evidence that it was Mylar? That it's just the balloons that were being made for Project Mogul, I don't believe were made of Mylar. I'm pretty sure those balloons were latex balloons. They're rubber balloons. What they show in the Roswell images is the radar target, from Roswell. They don't even show the balloon is actually like a black rubber balloon. It's not. So anyways, weird stuff there. Caltech, of course, developed the first metallic glass alloys in the 60s, and matte glass would probably be the only thing with the elastic limit and strength that's it's off the charts. So that's the only material we know of that has these, incredible strength and incredible elasticity. It's the only thing we really know of or have is these glassy alloys, metallic glasses. And these crystalline glasses not work so well, but the denser and irregular, ordinary crystal, then quasi crystals, of course, which is a whole different class. And then quasi crystals, it's like a weird thing because Dan Schechtman did his postdoc at Air Force Research Labs at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio in 1974. And while he's working there in 74, he gets inspiration almost less than a decade later. He comes up with this discovery of the icosahedral phase and opens up the whole field of quasi-crystals and quasi-periodic crystals, which of course is suppressed and rejected by the scientific community when it first comes out. The scientists of the day, like the top scientist, Linus Pauling, just shut him down, said it didn't exist, and literally like went in obscurity from when he discovered that in the 80s until 2011, when he finally was acknowledged and won the Nobel Prize for it. So think about how long that was, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 30 years later. It took 30 years because of this asshole right here. 30 years it took science, when we could have had a revolution overnight. If the modern day, that was Neil deGrasse, this guy's dead now, and everyone remembers him as a douchebag and an asshole, okay? And the problem is people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Shil Nye, the bias guy, can't understand that this is them.
Oh, they're worse. They're gatekeepers. They're paid gatekeepers. At this point, there's nothing else to it. Like,
they're going to be remembered like this guy in 30 years. They're going to be like, dude, like, you could have brought the revolution back in the 80s, and this guy could have won the Nobel Prize back then, and we could have had amazing research for 30 years. But instead, you just, it's just crazy. So many guys. Linus, not the only one who's in it for the money, man. I mean, look at Tyson. You telling me Tyson's not in it for the money?
Right, trying to come out and claim science says that there's no science on determining what determines a man or a female. Like, what? No.
Yeah, and then that was bad. And then the whole vaccines thing that was great when he debated Del Bigtree. That documentary that Del Bigtree put together, I am. It's banned. Vaxxed is banned, and if you watch that, you'll know why. So great. But this is the quasi crystals. Amazing stuff. Tons of crazy, great research on that. Maybe a potential way to access higher dimensions. I don't know. I had a former Area 51 friend that I used to talk to that talked all about that. Talked about a lot of other weird, crazy stuff too, like nuclear powered flying triangles, which I think were maybe a cover story that were told to him to cover for the Teledyne Ryan TR-3A Black Manta, which was a real craft. I can't find the TR-3B, but maybe this was he always asserted that this was the cover for the real program, but I don't know. Was this the cover? Was there a TR-3B? Because there was a TR-3A. It would reason that there might be a TR-3B. But yeah, that's a weird one, and we've never gotten to the bottom of that or resolved it. And we did find out, though, that this whole thing of the TR-3A eventually, developed into a lot of the drone reconnaissance program of the current, drone designs and stuff. So, and some say it actually developed into the B2,
Right
and the
now,
B2
the B-21 that they're coming up with.
Right. Oh God, that's all this stuff. Tonopah. There was a Site 4. That was the ECCM lab at Tonopah counter radar, and Bob Lear John Lear. Yeah, the whole Bob Lazar story. No, I don't know if there's ever going to be a element 115 stable isotope proven, but that would change everything if you could stabilize it with an isomer, or like a gamma ray bubble field. I don't know. There's been talk about that we had with I don't know. I don't think that I'm pretty sure that's
Disinfo, most likely.
disinfo. I mean, why was it all over everywhere? And yeah, no, it's 30-year-old crap. And there's a lot of other weird connections to these people that I won't get into, but man, there's a lot of weird connections that I found, like John Alexander being connected to Michael Aquino, and all this weird stuff, and it's just a big weird John Lear and the whole connection to that story. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he copied the idea that the reactor from the Demon Core, which he saw at Los Alamos National History Museum, and his story about the 2 scientists that were killed when they cut into the core, is of course a real story based on Louis Slotin and Harry Daglin, who died while working on the beryllium half shell with the Demon Core. They had the Demon Core in there, and they dropped it accidentally. The screwdriver fell out, and it went supercritical for a half a second. He had to grab it with his hand and pull it off. And of course, he burnt the crap out of his hand and got like a one of the most ridiculously strong doses of radiation that anyone's ever seen.
Oh, it would not be fun.
Not be fun. No, you have only a couple of days, like maybe a day or two to live. All his hair fell out within like the first 24 hours, and he just got like super ill and sick. Like, and he was just like, basically like writing his will on his death.
Oh man, that would be a horrible way to go, because it would just be so painful too, right? And your fate is sealed.
A lot of guys worked on that Manhattan Project that is super top secret. So the Manhattan Project is a key to a lot of this stuff, because this is where a lot of this stuff came from, of course, right? So the people that made these demon cores for the Manhattan Project was a private nonprofit quasi-governmental organization. So they wanted to keep the whole production of the demon core is the key. That's like the key component for the whole atomic bomb. That's like, if you go back to the whole Manhattan Project, it's all about the Demon Core, right? Most of the problem was with mining the uranium, refining the uranium and the plutonium, and then or converting the uranium into the plutonium to make like this Demon Core for the bomb, right? So that being the most sensitive component of the whole Manhattan Project, you'd think that was delegated to a very high level company in this whole mix. So who made the Demon Cores? Right? Oh, let's look it up. It was actually Battelle Memorial Institute.
Battelle, imagine that, eh?
Yeah. They don't talk about that here. I don't think they talk about how Battelle made the Demon Cores, but they definitely did make the Demon Cores, and you can look that up. So they're not even mentioned here in the Wikipedia article. Go figure, because they don't want anyone, any high school students doing basic research to come across a serious connection like that. But yeah, Battelle Memorial Institute is a nonprofit, private, charitable trust. So it is a quasi-governmental. It's they had 6.2 billion in revenue. So they're R&D and engineering service, and they mostly survive on government contracts. You know why? Because when the government wants to build things like the Demon Core and they want to keep it completely compartmentalized and top secret, they use a private, nonprofit, charitable quasi-governmental organization that has higher clearances than the president of the United States, right? Because they built the friggin' Demon Cores. The president probably didn't have access to any. I don't think Truman knew anything about that, have any access to that. Right?
Right. And private companies, then they don't have to follow
They
the
don't have to
FOIA requests.
FOIA request a private company. They'll laugh in your face. Say it's proprietary. That's our bread and butter. That's like the Coke. That's like asking Coke for the recipe for, Coca-Cola. It's like asking
Secret sauce is cocaine without the cocaine in Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
apparently.
Okay. What about the Bush's baked beans? He only told his dog. I don't know if you remember those commercials, but anyways. Anyways, yeah, it's like that. It's the same idea, man. These guys they're neither the government nor a company, but they're both, and they're above both. They're above it all. And they literally manage all of our national labs, and they have since the 1940s. So this is where the UFO file is and always has been. These guys would know everything about this. It's kind of crazy though. They're building these Demon Cores and they're attracting UFOs. UFOs are, coming over everything, and then one crashes, and then a couple months later, the highest levels, one of the physicists on the Manhattan Project with the highest level security clearance, did all the calculations for the whole atomic bomb stuff. I mean, he was top. He devised von Neumann machines. He said, oh, what if in 1947, just a couple months after Roswell, he was like, hey, what if aliens have these probes that they just could self-replicate and send everywhere in the universe and explore everything? Well, where did he come up with an idea like that? Maybe he just come up with it.
That's very interesting. That kind of leads to John Brandenburg's little theory there of what happened.
That whatever is showing up to monitor our nuclear development and our production of these Demon Cores and stuff showed up, and they said, hey, maybe those things were probes. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. But then Sarbacher comes forward and he leaks a whole bunch of information in the 50s. He goes to the newspapers and, I guess he's briefed on all this UFO stuff. And he goes and has this interview and tells the Wilbur Smith that, hey, the government's got this stuff and they're covering up, and they're hiring me to go and research the stuff. And it's interesting when you look into the books and the things that Sarbacher wrote on, the papers that he published on ultra high frequency engineering, all the terahertz stuff and high, gigahertz and stuff that we're a focus of a lot of this crazy research we now know and we're getting back into. Then you get into the whole Frank Olson, super interesting guy, because he ran that whole rainbow herbicides program, which was that once again that was like it was like chemtrail. He's an agriculturalist. He knows how to make plants grow. And the government came to him and said, hey, we want to hire you. Oh, great. What does the government want to hire me for? They want me to make a bunch of plants grow? No, we want you to do the opposite.
Not increasing the food.
No, you know how to make them grow, but we specifically want to know, how can we kill them? And what could we develop that would kill plants and allow them to, all right, so these are the vital functions, and how do those things work? And how can we build a chemical that disrupts all those vital functions? Okay, we'll call this one Agent Orange. And we'll call this one Agent Blue and Agent Purple and Agent, you know, so they have the whole rainbow herbicide program, which each one of these chemicals was built and designed to disrupt key plant, you know, evolutionary biological function. And they built all these chemicals and they sprayed all these chemicals in warfare on Vietnam, and including like anthrax and other stuff that they sprayed, you know, over there. And
with
yeah,
no regard how it affected humans either, with possibility of the intent for it to be harmful, right? Like,
yeah, let's just study it. Yeah, it's just another thing, you know. Oh, they'll live, but we can, you know, figure it out, you know, watch. And really weird guy, really crazy research. And then the CIA gave him LSD and they pushed him out of a third-story window, I think, a fourth-story window. And his death was they told his family for 20 years, you know, they told his wife that, you know, it was an accident. And then finally after 20 years they admitted to his wife that it was real. And that's all in a documentary called Operation Mind Control. Yeah, I think that's a video you can go watch, Operation Mind Control. Yeah,
possibly on Netflix.
The CIA's Project MK Ultra, the CIA's, or is it Mission Mind Control? I think it's Mission Mind Control. Yeah, Mission Mind Control. 1979. There it is. I'll share this.
Sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line. The search would be endless. From brothels, an agent says, we learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom, to the mystical rites of a magical mushroom ceremony performed by an Indian shaman, to a Spanish bull ring. The bull has had electrodes implanted in the brain and is controlled by a scientist.
What?
There would be victims. One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
I lived through it. I lived through it.
This man worked on some of these programs. He would write of his work, it was fun, fun, fun. This is the story of the search for mind control.
ABC News Close-Up, Mission Mind Control. With ABC News correspondent Paul Altmaier.
And this is ABC.
Mark? Anne. It's been ages.
Can I buy it?
Allow me. 2 Michelob Lights.
Michelob makes a light beer?
Perfect. The good taste of Michelob Light. Don't just come.
Dude, I can't believe these old commercials and everything on this. They have the whole program. Yeah, this is a good watch if you guys ever want to go back and check this out. But they talk about all this, and then they actually interview Olsen's wife. Yeah, so he's got the part about Frank Olsen right here, and then they actually interview his wife, and like, look how old she is when the CIA finally told her, like, hey, we killed your husband like 20 years ago.
It's just
sorry.
weird.
Yeah, this is.
And hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time. And the anger was unnecessary.
Anyone who knew during all of those years never told Alice Olsen the real story of her husband's death. She would discover it by accident more than 2 decades later. In essence, it was a 22-year-long cover-up. Lyman Kirkpatrick was Inspector General of the CIA at the time of Frank Olson's death.
But had not the Olson case occurred within the secret confines of the CIA, would not this case have been a prosecutable case? Perhaps manslaughter?
I would think very definitely prosecutable, and certainly from the point of view of of Mr. Olson, why it should probably have been actionable.
Frank Olson's suicide slowed down the CIA's testing of LSD and other drugs, but only momentarily. The CIA was not the only government agency interested in the possibilities LSD and other drugs presented for mind control. The Army Chemical Corps first started working with the CIA and then branched off on its own. It too tested drugs on unwitting victims, and a death would result. The case of this man, Harold Blower, a tennis pro, seen here with his daughter Elizabeth, is well known. In 1953, Blower was a private patient at the New York State Psychiatric Institute. He was given 5 injections of a mescaline derivative that was being tested secretly for the Army Chemical Corps. With the 5th injection, Harold Blower died. As with the Olson case, a 22-year cover-up followed, until finally the Army admitted the real details of Blower's death.
Since the initial news stories of Harold Blower's death, close to 5,000 documents, previously classified, have been released by the Army and obtained by ABC News. They provide valuable insight into Army activities at the time of Blower's death and where the Army went from there with their own drug testing program.
From a previously classified deposition of Dr. James Patel.
This is a good documentary to watch if you guys want to dig into all that stuff. But yeah, they drugged a lot of people. They experimented with a lot of drugs, and
basically your government was behaving like your teenage child, but then went on a murderous rampage.
Yeah, it was, quite bad. And one of the people that they actually gave drugs to and fucked with was at a Harvard program, and that guy's name was Ted Kaczynski. Have you ever heard of him?
I think you brought him up before.
Yeah, he's the Unabomber.
Oh, yeah.
Would you believe that he was a Harvard student?
Student they gave drugs to, and then possibly put into their controlled assassin MK Ultra.
They put him in this special program for like the best students, and they had him write like a whole list of all his goals of everything he wanted to accomplish in the next 15 years. They had him write this big long essay, right, about everything, all his top goals, and they had a whole bunch of other students, him and a whole bunch of other students do this, right? Then they gave him LSD, and they put him in a room full of all his they made him read his paper off to all these professors, and they just basically tore him apart, and he had to try to defend himself while he's tripping on LSD to all his professors, and the professors all the professors tore him apart and tore him down and called him an imbecile and said that he's never going to make it and all this stuff. Basically went from 160 IQ thinking he's like super smart and going to change the world with all these great ideas to literally just fucking his whole like ego and his whole like life up. It was like torture. It was basically
how could you ever come back from something like that? Here's your big paper with all your professors, but you've been drugged on acid, you don't even know it, and they're set up to attack you, and you're supposed the worst trip
it's
ever.
the worst trip ever you could imagine, and it sent him in a bad it sent him down a bad path, because he ended up like just saying like fuck technology and everything is like fucked, and like I don't know. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy thing that they did to Ted, and then it's a pretty crazy thing that Ted went and did. You look at a lot of these crazy people, and then it turns out that they're they got these CIA influences behind them, and that's pretty wild. But it makes you wonder like how long they knew he was the one before they caught up with him. what purpose he served. You know, kind of wild, man. The whole MK Ultra stuff and the way the CIA works. But besides that, let's get back into the I'll get back into the UAP technical summary here. You know, James Forrestal sent to the Bethesda Naval Hospital. Apparently, they sent a lot of people there that were victims of MK Ultra, or people that saw real stuff. You know, you saw aliens or reported a UFO, man, in the military. That, you know, and you wouldn't start talking about it. That they'd send you the psych ward at Bethesda, and they'd say, "Listen, you're going to stay here forever until you tell the
your
doctor
mind right, till you get your mind right, right?
You get your mind right." Yeah. So, Roscoe Hillenkoetter, head of the CIA, he was the first director of the CIA.
And they put him in there.
And he was put in right in charge in time for 47. So he was there in 47 for Roswell. And later, you know, testified that behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense. So yeah, they knew about the real UFOs. They set up Project Grudge. That was basically a deliberate attempt to make fun of UFOs. Jerry Cummings reveals that the entire project's a joke. No one's taking it seriously. And then they closed that down. They created Project Blue Book, yeah, and the Project Saucer, Project Sign, and Project Saucer ran alongside Project Grudge. That was like the real one, you know. And
it makes me wonder about how, like, all the old cases, all the old sightings, they were always disc-shaped craft, or they were like the cylindrical cigar-shaped craft, right? And like even Gary McKinnon, in the image that he got from the NASA, where he said that the unscrubbed image, it was a cigar-shaped craft. And then nowadays, you don't really hear any UFO sightings of either of those two shapes. And it's like, so are these orbs, the Tic Tacs, whatnot, our technology? And that if there was aliens, that was their stuff, but we now shoot them down, or they aren't able to fly around as freely, something along those lines?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it our tech and we just got better with the invisibility? Now you can't see them anymore. Maybe, I don't know. It's a good question. It's whose tech was it and what were these things? I have you've seen Michael Schratt's presentations where he goes over all the sightings and he goes decade by decade, and you can tell, like, these things, if they're made up stories, they're definitely in line with the sci-fi craft of the day, you know, because what you know, it's like what people are seeing is in line with the technology of that era, which leads a lot to, you know, is this made up hoaxes, or is this our craft that we're making, you know, and flying around because they look so much like Buck Rogers in the 50s, and then, you know, eventually Star Trek and stuff in the 80s, and then what
right? And how Michael Schratt goes over how it, like, literally documents what seems to be the progression of the evolution of the electrostatic electrogravitic development of the technology under us, right? Like, and that lots of the old sightings, they were around power lines and seemed like the craft were sucking up power from the electrical lines and whatnot.
Right. And then this whole mysterious pentacle memorandum in Alchemist files, which names basically a second Project Blue Book. We talk about Patel, I think, was in charge of it. He was Howard Cross was the director of Battelle at the time, and he's like one of the top people on the list. So you look at, Battelle was hired to do those investigations of titanium alloys right after Roswell. In 49, they did that whole thing for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It was commissioned. Why is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base commissioning the top metallurgy contractor of the United States government to do a report which wrote 3 entire pages on titanium nickel alloys, more than any other alloy that they examined, but they examined a lot of different titanium alloys to learn, just to examine and learn the science behind it. Why were they interested in that? Why did they want to learn that? And why did they ask them specifically to spend 3 pages on nickel titanium alloys a decade before we discovered nitinol with those same phase diagrams?
Right? Like there's too many coincidences that all add up to show this story that they definitely were developing it. They knew exactly what they were doing. And the only question is the original source of it all.
Battelle scientist Elroy Center testified that he'd been given pieces of what he thought were alien craft. He said this stuff was so advanced that I don't think we could have, anyone on Earth could have built this. Not our labs, not Russia, not China. There's no one on Earth that could have built this. This indestructible material of like incredibly high strength and incredibly, unique properties, this memory foil stuff. And what did Elroy Center do? He's got a paper for Battelle. You can look it up. It's in that whole report. It's an analytical method for titanium-based alloys, studying on the chemical analysis of oxygen and titanium by the chlorine carbon tetrachloride method. This stuff was so indestructible, they had to dissolve it in tetrachloride and chlorine. Pure chlorine, like basically pure chlorine. They had to burn it in chlorine and then measure the off gases to tell what the heck it was made of.
That's
why.
wild.
What would they have to do that for? What was this
Right?
stuff? What was this material, and what the hell was it made of that you have to burn it in the most corrosive chemical on Earth and then measure the off gases?
Such poisonous, toxic process too, right? Like that you'd be going to those extremes.
Yeah, and develop this very complex apparatus for measuring and separating the different gases that came off it, so you could analyze it. I mean, they went through quite a process, in 49 for these titanium alloys for whatever reason. That's what really gets me. I tend to think that these metamaterials and some of these other objects, interesting, worthy of further study. It was so psyched when one of the scientists' labs that we cleared out turned out to have a piece of this stuff, and it says Linda Moulton Howe right on the box with a date on it. It said Art's Parts. So we're like, we have a piece of Art's Parts now. And Jared's been working hard on getting it analyzed with undestructive means. We only have a really, really tiny, small piece, so we don't want to do any destructive tests on it. So we're trying to do everything we can besides destroy it,
Besides putting it in pure chlorine.
Yeah, the JFK assassination and how that there's a lot of weird ties on the JFK thing, because there's the whole, he's sleeping with Marilyn Monroe, and the whole Dorothy Kilgallen knows about all this stuff, and then she's Dorothy Kilgallen's got the interview with Jack Ruby. She interviews him for 3 days at the jail. Then he goes to court. They give him this court-appointed psychiatrist. He kills himself. Jack Ruby goes insane. No, doesn't kill himself. Jack Ruby goes absolutely insane after seeing this psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist drugged him or gave him something that made him just lose his mind. And then right before Dorothy Kilgallen can publish her big expose story on Jack Ruby, whatever he told her before he went insane and lost his memory, lost everything, like just went off the deep end. Dorothy Kilgallen never gets the chance to publish that because she gets killed. And that's another interesting connection with the whole JFK is quite wild. But the big key to the JFK assassination is actually in his CIA handler, who's still alive, and that's the reason they can't release the files, and they won't release the files until she dies. Once she dies, that I swear to God, I wish that someone could get her to confess. But this is Oswald's landlady, Ruth Payne. She's 90. She's like 90. I think she's like 90 years old. It says 84, but I thought she was 90 years old. But she's old. She's still alive. This was Oswald's landlady. This is the lady who gave Oswald the apartment, housed, helped house Marina Oswald and the children there. Got Oswald the job at the school book depository building. So she introduced, Oswald to Harold Bird. And Harold D. Bird, who owned the school book depository building, if you look up Harold Bird, his cousin of Admiral Byrd, who ran the Antarctica missions, really weird connection. And David Harold Byrd also co-founded the Civil Air Patrol, which was the CIA's recruiting ground there in Texas. Civil Air Patrol down in Texas was run by a homosexual named David Ferry. David Ferry was the guy who recruited Oswald into the CIA through Civil Air Patrol. So Oswald was a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol when he was like 17, and gets recruited by David Ferry into the CIA. Now, David Ferry is also running this underground homosexual entrapment operation, which, basically like entrapping young men into this homosexual ring, and then basically using that to really get people on. Once they know that they have homosexual material on you, they can blackmail you, like Edgar Hoover was like apparently doing with a lot of people, and did with Clyde Tolson and a lot of other individuals. Clyde Tolson was J. Edgar Hoover's gay lover, and they were both like cross-dress and go out together and weird stuff. But it was all like an effort to entrap other people, other gay men through FBI, like sting operations and stuff. And this whole weird thing. There's a lot of that around. This was a time when if you were a homosexual, it could be used against you. So it's a compromising thing. So a lot of intelligence agencies use this, and you'll find a lot of gay people around the whole JFK assassination if you dig into it, because from David Ferry to Clay Shaw, never married. Clay Shaw, the gay, definitely a gay businessman. Also, Ruth Payne, known lesbian, had lesbian pornography back in the 60s in her home.
And that was very, very taboo back in those days, right? Like
big time. So all these people were homosexuals that could be used as that. Lee Harvey Oswald was apparently a homosexual as well. And also Jack Ruby, well-known homosexual. He owned the Carousel Club, never slept with the dancers, never hit on the dancers. He had all the strippers working at his club, but he was well known that he was gay and had a lover. In fact,
so this was just like generation 1 or earlier generation incarnation of the Epstein Diddy style of how the world works.
Like blackmail, compromising all these people involved in the whole JFK assassination is a really wild thing. So the whole connection with all these people that are connected to the JFK assassination that turn out to be compromised CIA agents. But the big thing was the Alpha 66 group, because the Alpha 66 group was really the one. Project was it Alpha 66 was that, and then what was the one? Project Mongoose? No. Well, Operation Zapata is another key to the whole because it links the whole Bush connection into all that, because the CIA was planning to invade the Bay of Pigs, and they were using the oil rigs in the off the shore. The oil rigs were owned by Zapata Oil Company, which was Bush's first oil company. So Bush gets a bunch of money to start his first oil company, builds a bunch of oil rigs out in the off the coast of Cuba, and those are just so happen to be used as a staging ground for the Bay of Pigs operation for the CIA. So, which codenames the whole Bay of Pigs invasion Operation Zapata after the Zapata oil rigs, which were Bush's. So Bush is key guy connected to this whole CIA operation. The big businessman involved with Daddy Bush there. And then the CIA's Bay of Pigs falls through. Kennedy doesn't give him air support. So a whole CIA army that went to go raid and overthrow Castro on the island and install. They were going to install a new government, which was going to consist of Frank Sturgis and a number of these other guys. Frank Sturgis was set to become like the CIA's installed governor of Cuba. I mean, he spoke fluent Spanish. He was a double agent for the CIA, and Frank was going to be installed as the head of Cuba once they overthrew Castro. And they got out of there, and this guy was pissed at Kennedy, along with a number of these other group mates from the project, what was the one with they all met at the Havana Club in Cuba there, and it's got Portergoss. Let me see, I'll look this up. Portergoss, Tosh Plumley, David Morales. Yeah, I think it's Operation 40. Yeah, it was Operation 40, it was called. And this is the picture where it's got like all these guys that are linked to all these CIA assassinations and stuff during the 60s. And then they got, Portergoss right in there. And Barry Seal. And Barry Seal, the CIA coke smuggler of the whole thing. So yeah, it goes, this is a wild ride down the rabbit hole when you start digging into all these guys and everything they're involved in. And then David Morales was the top CIA. He was at the Ambassador Hotel, like lurking around in the background when Kennedy RFK was killed too. So David Sanchez Morales, and he's also alleged to be the Umbrella Man. Looks like the Umbrella Man from the JFK assassination too. So yeah, he says we took care of that SOB, and then we took care of his brother too. He bragged about killing the Kennedys.
Just like getting away with literally murdering presidents and bragging about it.
This is when we talk about the deep state. We need to talk about the deep state. This is who we talk about. And this tall guy right here, that's Ted Shackley. I think. Is that Ted Shackley? Yeah, this is the guy that Matt Damon's character was based on in that movie, right? Or was that Anslinger?
Kind of looks like Matt Damon.
Right. I think that's why they played him in that movie. Yeah, this is Jolly West, man. This is the guy. They had the interview with him in that movie, that Mission Mind Control. If you want to watch that, blow your mind. The interview with him is just he has no remorse. He loved that the CIA paid him to do all this crazy, fucked up shit.
Deep state is literally a bunch of psychopaths, murderers, mobsters, and corrupt.
Yeah, they run shit and then they get away with it. That's crazy when you really look at it. Yeah, there's so much, dude. You could write a crazy book on all this. Yeah, but then the JFK assassination, Oswald's has all these weird connections. Also, the Atsugi Air Force Base thing, man. There's already a book about it called Crossfire by Jim Mars.
R.I.P. Jim Mars.
Yeah, Jim Mars is really the grandfather of conspiracy and all this stuff. Like, if you want books on, he's really written a lot of books on a lot of this stuff already. If you go and read Jim Mars's work, he really blew a lot of this stuff out the water. Didn't make all. I wish he was alive to see all the connections we've made since he died. When did Jim Mars die? Because, man, he was the granddaddy of conspiracy. 2017, man. So it wasn't that long ago. But damn,
really wasn't.
A lot has happened though since 2017, though. Like, so much. If he only knew everything that's come out since 2017, like, so many of stuff has been just proven true, and then more connections have just emerged on a lot of this research. But yeah, he did a lot of the foundational work to really lay out the plot for who killed Kennedy and who was involved and all the suspects. It talks about Edgar Hoover, talks about LBJ, talks about Lee Harvey Oswald and his whole background, and really makes a pretty strong case that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA operative, a CIA agent, set up Patsy, and then Jack Ruby took him out, and Jack Ruby was mind controlled with MK Ultra to do so. Crazy stuff, man. Yeah, Jim Mars, man. Jim Mars was a man. He wrote a lot of this stuff. Jim Mars' book, Sci Spies, too. The Enigma Files. Yeah, this is a good one. If you he really does a good job documenting the whole history of the psychic warfare program, and that's like the origin story for Hal Puthoff and the Men Who Stare at Goats. All that stuff was real programs run out of the U.S. Army psychological warfare laboratories. So
that's the craziest part. Like, it's just like, what? MK Ultra, like, it's all legitimate. It's wild.
It's nuts, dude. The Spy Museum is the Spy Museum. They only show you some of the stuff, man. There's so much more like to it, because yeah, we could go on all day. Anyways, it's been 2 hours, man. I think we did a good deep dive for tonight. I love making those connections for people to really help understand that this stuff is nothing new. It's been going on for a while. There's just different names to the people that were involved, and that they were involved in all kinds of other side stuff too. That once upon a time in Hollywood story with Robert Hale. Time in Hollywood. That's about Robert Hale, man, and that's the character is played by Brad Pitt, Cliff Booth. It's all connected. Anyways, guys, yeah, thanks for a good night, and keep exposing all that stuff, all these Hollywood people and all the government people, and I can't wait to see what's going to come out on this. You know, I just want to see a vote. A vote. What do people think is going to happen with Puffy, P Diddy, P Diddler? You think he's going to get Epstein?
I was about to say, I think there's going to be a meme of Diddy didn't Epstein himself, or Diddy didn't Epstein.
Diddy didn't Epstein himself,
right? Or Diddy did Epstein himself. And oh yeah, R.I.P. to Bruce C's all Bruce Schwartz. I was in contact with him. I was trying to get him scheduled for doing a show with you, Jeremy. We'll have to do an episode just covering his work. Amazing YouTuber that just passed, but he's a backyard astronomer that recorded thousands of videos of what appears to be UFO, UAP going in and off the moon. And he was one of a few that also recorded video of what's called the lunar wave or whatever, that phenomenon. But just a great backyard astronomer.
Is it still up or is it gone?
Yeah, no, it should still be up. Bruce C is all.
Drop a link and I'll go check that out, man. Thank you for that.
For sure.
That's a shame, man. Well, we'll definitely do one soon and revisit him and some of his stuff, man.
Absolutely. And thank you for all you do, my friend. And we'll do this again very soon. As soon as Taryn is able to come on, and we can do that whole deep dive.
Heck yeah, I love deep dives, man. That's good stuff. We're gonna get Taryn on a whole bunch of new stuff on the. And if anyone has new stuff that they want to, add databases and stuff and share databases, and by all means, reach out and let's get in touch. Thank you guys for watching, and my email is thealienscientist@gmail.com. If you guys want to drop me a line, recommend me as a guest on your next podcast, and that's how to get in touch with me. And yes, anyone wants to send me random files, too, that's always welcome. I had somebody send me a mystery flash drive recently. It turned out to be a whole bunch of really bizarre flat earth theory stuff, but hey, that's cool too. Whatever you want to send me, if you think it's important, maybe I will too. No, right. Thank you guys for that stuff, and I shouldn't have dropped the key word there at the end, talking about I shouldn't even have said that. But this is the kind of stuff people send me, man. It's just but I was really hoping that it was going to be like Edward Snowden files of like some top secret NSA program with, or some kind of crazy something or other, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
One day soon, hopefully. Exactly.
Some alien porn,
Hey, if it proves aliens are real, sure.
Yeah, dude, imagine that. The first proof of aliens is a porno.
That would be quite suiting to our society, right?
That would be absolutely amazing, because then the debunkers are just going to be like, that would just be devastating to them. It would be like a dildo right in their assholes. That'd be great. Yes.
All right, my friend.
Anyway,
well,
yes.
On that note, love you all. Thanks for having me on. And anyone out there with real alien porn, send it in so we can have disclosure, I guess, right?
Yes. Alien cornhole or porn or whatever. That would be fire. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for watching and caring about disclosure. Alien boobs for the win. Have a good night.
Much love.